There's a book called Fix This Next by Mike Michalowicz, and it essentially helps you take your business from startup to scale. It's a really fantastic book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. But today we're going to talk about how these principles can be used to help better build, market, and sell your app. Now, make sure you stick around until the end because we have 5 examples of existing apps that we're going to take these principles and apply them to. We're going to walk through those apps step by step so you can take this and again apply it to your own app. Hey, it's Kristen over at Coaching No Code Apps. We help non-technical entrepreneurs build custom apps so they can start their app-based businesses or grow their existing businesses all without coding. And if that's what you're doing, then subscribe for new videos to help you every single week. First, a little bit of context. You may have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is what you see on the screen here. Now, this essentially shows the needs we have as human beings. So at the very base level, we have certain physiological needs. Once those are met, we start to look at meeting our safety needs. Once those are met, we start to look at meeting our love and belonging needs. And essentially, it shows the very base layer of our needs and then how we prioritize our needs as humans once we've established each lower base piece. So the reason why we start there is because while Maslow's hierarchy of needs shows our needs and the way we prioritize those as human beings, in the book Fix This Next, Mike Michalowicz creates a business hierarchy of needs. So it essentially shows the same sort of foundation and helps you prioritize a business's needs and see which needs to be met before you can focus on the next needs and the next needs and so on. So it's a similar concept but applied to businesses. Now, there are 2 things I want you to take away from this video. One, I want you to understand this business hierarchy of needs because as you move forward with your own app-based business or your existing business that you're building a new app for, I want you to be able to better prioritize the needs of your business. But on the flip side, I want you to better understand how to build, market, and sell your app. Now, this is specific to apps that are being built and sold for business use. So if you're building an app for consumer use, you actually might want to focus on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we have a video that goes a little bit more deeply into that. But in this situation, this video should help you grow your own business and grow your app as a whole. All right, so with that in mind, let's go through what these needs are. We're over on the iPad here. We have our pyramid similar to what you saw when we looked at Maslow's hierarchy, but at the very bottom of the business hierarchy of needs, we have sales. Okay, so essentially in order to establish your business, any type of business, you need to have sales. You need to have money coming in, otherwise you really aren't a business. And then on top of that, once you have those sales established, the next priority is profit. So when you're starting out as a business, the biggest bottleneck you have is just making your first dollars. Well, once you do that, the next bottleneck you're going to run into is making those dollars more profitable, right? So increasing your profit margins. Now, once you have increased those profit margins, so you have the foundation of sales, you have the foundation of profit, well, then you're going to start focusing more on order within your business. So up to this point, a lot of businesses operate in really scrappy ways, right? That's just kind of how it goes. So you do what you can to get those sales, you do what you can to get that profit, but in order to truly scale, you have to create order within those things. So things like SOPs, growing a team, right? Delegating. So you have to create systems within your business in order to truly scale the sales and the profit that you're now generating. Now, once you have order, your next biggest bottleneck becomes impact. So how can you make a deeper impact? You have the sales, you have the profit, you have the order. How can you amplify those things so that they make a deeper impact, both for yourself, for your team, and for your users, your customers, your community? Now, once you have established that deeper impact, then you start to look at the legacy you're going to leave. So thinking into the future, maybe you want to create a legacy for your family. Maybe you want to create a business that leaves that legacy for your family. Maybe you want to be able to hand it down. When you get up to this legacy point, everything else in your business is running smoothly. Yes, there are going to be bottlenecks that pop up and things that need to be fixed in every level of this hierarchy. But once you've established a foundation for all the levels below it, then you start thinking about what you're leaving behind. You start thinking about a transition. How do I leave personally, but how do I leave the business so that it is still continuing to make that impact, have the order, make the profit, make the sales, right? Things like that. Now that you have that context, let's apply this to your own app. We're going to start by talking about how to apply these principles to the marketing and the sales of your app. And then we're going to come back around and talk about how they apply to building your app and making sure that you're going through this initial development phase as best as you possibly can. Okay, so number one, marketing. Now, there's a principle that I want you to understand kind of as a precursor, and this applies to marketing your app, doing user outreach, really just having conversations about your app. And the idea is that you are either going to be marketing and selling a painkiller or marketing and selling a vitamin. Now, this is not a concept that I've personally come up with. It's just something that makes it easier to understand how to best market your app. So if your app is a painkiller, it is a tool, a solution that solves a problem someone is having where they are experiencing severe pain points from that problem, and there is an urgency they are feeling to solve that problem. Think about when you take painkillers. You have a headache. There's a pain point there, right? And depending on how severe that is, you might have a real sense of urgency to go and take a painkiller, right? So your product can be seen as the same sort of thing. Now, on the flip side, you could be building a vitamin. Now, a vitamin is something that you might personally take just to keep things running smoothly like they already are. Or maybe you're in good health and you just want to optimize if you can. Right? So your product or solution can kind of be a similar thing where if someone's business systems, for example, are running pretty smoothly and they aren't experiencing any real pain points in the moment, well, then as an entrepreneur or business owner would, they're going to start thinking, well, how do I improve? How do I optimize? Maybe I've solved all these problems, put out the fires. How do I get better, right? So your product or solution could be a vitamin. Now, while you can successfully sell a product that fits into either category, it's almost always going to be easier to market and sell the painkiller. Because when there's that severe pain point that a person or a business is experiencing, and there's a real sense of urgency to remove that pain point, it simply becomes easier to sell your product. People are going to be quicker to look for solutions, quicker to purchase solutions, quicker to use solutions. So you can successfully sell a vitamin or a painkiller, but it's generally easy to sell that painkiller. Looking back to the business hierarchy of needs, I want you to figure out where your app falls into for other businesses. When you understand those things, you'll know who to market to and also how to better frame your marketing, your user outreach, and your conversations. All right, moving on to sales, you want to make sure you understand how to sell the right outcome to the right target user. Going back to the hierarchy, this is a graphic here that I pulled from the Fix This Next book website, so this is not my own, but this graphic goes into a little bit more detail. So we have those same stages, right? The sales, profit, order, impact, legacy. Now, according to the Fix This Next principles, right, there are 5 core needs that every business is going to have within each of these levels. So for example, if you were a business who is focusing on their sales, that foundational level, or you're serving a business that's doing that, well, there are 5 core needs that a business would have to fill at this level in order to start prioritizing the next. So for sales, we have lifestyle congruence, prospect attraction, client conversion, delivering on commitments, collecting commitments. So essentially making sure that you are selling your product, your service, whatever it may be, and that it aligns with your own personal vision, right? How you want to start up the company and where you want to go to. Are you making sales, and is it taking you in that direction? Okay, we won't go through every single one of them, but you can see them here, and you can pause and read through them if you'd like to. But the reason why I want to go through them is to help you understand that there is kind of like a checklist of items that these businesses, any business, your own or the ones that you serve, that are going to need to they're going to need to make sure they have these checked before they really start focusing on the next level. Now, those checklist items are all different little bottlenecks that businesses, again, yourself or the ones that you're serving, are going to be experiencing. The reason why this is so important for you when it comes to selling your app is because as businesses look to solve these bottlenecks or clear these bottlenecks, what they are really aiming to achieve is the outcome that is going to happen on the other side of that bottleneck being solved or cleared away. Let's take this order level, for example. So if a business has established sales and consistent sales, they've established consistently good profit margins for their business, they're going to start thinking about order. Well, now how do I scale that as a whole? Okay, now what's going to happen is these businesses will start to create things like SOPs and have actual systematic ways of making those sales, making that profit, delivering results for customers, clients, and users, right? And they're going to start hiring and delegating the work. Okay, so if we look down at the 5 core needs for order, well, the first one here is to minimize wasted effort. So it's really painful for a business to be delegating work to freelancers or contractors or employees and to not have efficient systems, because that means the work is taking longer to do. And so now there is time waste and money waste for the company, right? So let's say your app was an app that helps companies create wikis for their systems and for their operations. Right? Well, the idea is to minimize wasted effort, but you wouldn't be selling your app as, well, this is a wiki for your operations. You would be selling the outcome instead. You're going to be saying, hey, this is going to help you save that wasted time and that wasted money that you are using to delegate inefficient systems to your employees. So we've talked about the marketing and the sales, and that brings us around to the build. Now, you already know that when you're building the first version of your app, you want to keep a really narrow focus. You don't want to build a really big product because you want to test and validate that product, and you want to do it as quickly as you can. But even though you might know that going into the development of your app, I have a little bit of a warning for you. It's really easy as you are building your app to think about adding on other functionality. Now, here's the thing. This is how it happens. So you're using no-code tools to build your app, and you start building your app with a narrow scope in mind, and you start learning how to use your no-code tools, your platforms like Bubble, as you start to build out that scope. But the more you learn about how to use these platforms, the more capabilities you'll understand that they have, right? When our clients start using Bubble, in the beginning, they're really tightly focused on that scope. But the more they learn about Bubble, the more ideas they have of other features that could be built that they didn't even know they could be thinking about previously. So my warning for you is, if you understand which stage in the hierarchy of needs your app is applying to, stick with that. If you're building an app that is going to help a business increase their profit margins, well, along the way, you might start thinking about how to add maybe sales functionality into that. But every time that happens, the water gets muddied and murky when it comes to marketing. It's also harder to sell an app, especially early on, because let's say your app focuses on helping those businesses increase their profit margins, but then you add on additional sales functionality. Well, for the business that's experiencing the bottlenecks focused on profit, if they find that they're also paying for something that acts as a sales tool, but they already have that foundation there. Well, there's a good chance that prospective user is going to think, well, the profit tool would be helpful, but it looks like I'm also going to be paying for something I don't even need. Let me see if I can find a solution that fits only what I need so I could potentially pay less. So harder to market, harder to sell, and a wider scope. None of those things are what you want to start out with when you're launching your first version app, your pilot app. So when you have that super tight scope, the right hierarchy of need that your app applies to, and the right outcome that you're selling, that creates a really solid foundation for you to move forward with your app. We're going to jump over to our 5 app examples that I mentioned at the beginning, and we're going to look at how these principles for building, marketing, and selling your app are used in these already existing apps. Let's start at the bottom of the hierarchy with sales. Now we have an app here called Pipedrive, and you can see from the header and the subheader on the main landing page that Pipedrive is an all-in-one sales platform for growing revenue. Okay, the first CRM designed by salespeople for salespeople. Do more to grow your business. Thinking back to that sales foundational level in the hierarchy, well, what are all the bottlenecks focused on? Or what are all the bottlenecks inhibiting, rather? Well, it's the growth of the business, right? The very first thing you have to do is make sales. That establishes your business, that grows your revenue, and allows you to have the opportunity to start experiencing bottlenecks from the next level and the next level. Now let's look at the scope, the features. So if I hover over products, you'll see something interesting here. So we actually have 2 products within Pipedrive. We have the sales software and we have email software. Now you might be saying, hey Kristen, didn't you just tell me not to focus on multiple things? And the reason why I wanted to show you Pipedrive specifically is because this is a really good example of how you can expand your app as it grows, right? So if you were starting out as Pipedrive, the single thing you're going to focus on is the sales software. And while I don't really know Pipedrive, I can pretty much guarantee you that that's how they started. As they've grown and as they've expanded, likely what happened is they decided to add on email marketing capabilities to their product to help drive the sales. So instead of solving different problems with the same product, they're actually solving the same problem, but in different ways. So they're looking at that same foundational level within the hierarchy, but they're solving different bottlenecks to help businesses reach the next level of the hierarchy. And this is a good example of how you can expand your app over time, not all at once and not in the beginning for your first launch, but over time. Let's move up the hierarchy to that profit level. So I did a Google search for this and found an app called Epic Ledger. So again, I'm not familiar with it, but it'll be a good example. So Epic Ledger is essentially an app that lets businesses create dashboards that show all of their analytics. So going back to the hierarchy, if we have the sales already in place and now we're focusing on being more profitable, well, what's going to allow you to do that? Data, right? So Epic Ledger allows businesses to see those data points at a glance. So let's think back to marketing, sales, and build. So on their product page, we can see that you can instantly access your financial data from anywhere at any time. And then down here, we have make critical business decisions faster. Access your finances 24/7. So what's interesting here is we're not talking, or Epic Ledger rather, is not talking about how it allows you to set up a dashboard and all the different features and functionality. It's marketing and selling the outcome. Okay, so we're looking at businesses who are trying to make decisions, critical decisions, based on their finances. Those businesses are going to be looking at how to best spend their money, how to best save their money, and how to be profitable as they can be, right? So we're looking at selling the access to financial data to make critical business decisions faster. When you're solving bottlenecks at this stage, that's what you want to be able to do. You don't want to kick the can down the road and delay these bottlenecks, or elongate them rather. When we bring it back to the build, well, this is pretty simple. They don't have a bunch of extra functionality here. It's just focused on having access to that data so businesses can make their critical decisions that are going to bump them up to that order level in the hierarchy. And with that in mind, we have an app here called Process Street, and this one fits within that order level we just talked about. So again, you have the sales, you have the profit. Well, now we need to make all of these things that are currently running the business systematic so that, I'm not the only one running it, or you're not the only one running it. You need to be able to scale. So Process Street allows for that, right? So let's just look at some of the copy here. Well, simple process and workflow management. Process Street is a simple, free, and powerful way to manage your team's recurring checklists and procedures. Going back and looking at this order level, well, the first core need here is to minimize wasted effort. So being able to manage a team's recurring workflows, well, that's pretty important, right? That's one of the main bottlenecks here. And you can see that's what's happening here with Process Street. So if we scroll down a little bit, we have the simplest way to manage recurring workflows within your team. Very straightforward here. Create a workflow, run multiple instances of it, track progress, and collaborate. So when a business is in this order stage and they're initially fixing their bottlenecks, they're going to be thinking a lot about how to best delegate work. And that's a hard thing to do when you're initially growing a team or when you have a larger team, right? So to be able to really easily create workflows that need to happen, or processes to help create order within the business, and to be able to run that multiple times. So to let a team member come in and just go through the process, go through it again, right? And to be able to track that, that's a really important thing. So Process Street has very much targeted a specific stage within the hierarchy and kept a super tight focus. They solve a very specific problem, and they haven't created any kind of clutter or convolution of that. It's just solve that one bottleneck. So we have sales, profit, and order. Now we're going to move up to the last two levels of that hierarchy. So the next one would be impact. We have an app here called Happy at Work. Again, I don't have experience using this, but it's a great example. So you can see here that this app allows you to measure the happiness of your employees. So when you think about impact, the types of bottlenecks a business is going to be experiencing relates to the way employees are working within the organization, the impact that the employees are having on the organization, and vice versa, and the impact that the organization is having on their community, their customers. What I love about Happy at Work's landing page is they move immediately to selling the outcome. So this is what the app does, but if you scroll down to right below the fold, well, look what we have here. Lower staff turnover and increase employee engagement. Now, those are bottlenecks that any business in the impact stage is going to be trying to solve, right? They want to retain the good employees, and they want to do that by making sure their employees are really engaged. Now let's think about the build here and the development. If I click over to features, let's see what we have here. So we're going to scroll down and we have a list of the features. So your team receives a message where they prefer, right? They answer a survey, analyze your survey results instantly and over time. And then we have, let's see, an anonymous chat function, pulse surveys, alarms, and synchronization. So these are very simple things. We're not creating clutter here, but look at how simple this is. Look at how tight the scope is and how focused it is on that one stage and clearing those bottlenecks for a very specific type of business. Going back to the iPad here, we have gone from the sales stage, we moved all the way up here, and now we're at this last stage of legacy. So a business is not going to be thinking about the legacy, or at least taking action on anything that's going to solve bottlenecks related to it, until they have the sales, the profit, the order, and the impact. then we get to the legacy. And that takes us to an app here called BetterUp. So BetterUp is, let's see, growth and transformation for a thriving workforce. BetterUp helps employees build the skills, mindsets, and behaviors needed to perform at their peak, both personally and professionally. So if you think back to those bottlenecks being experienced at the impact stage, a lot of what businesses are thinking about at that level is how does the business remain functional and continue serving and growing even after the initial founders, CEOs, business owners are long gone? How does the business continue to make an impact over time? Well, a lot of that involves building leadership within the business and making sure that you're training leaders. So you're taking your employees and helping them improve their own skills so they can become leaders. And so you can create an organization that's kind of like a living organization. It's going to continue to grow and operate over time. If we scroll down here, we have, let's see, grow and transform with BetterUp. So BetterUp uses coaching, science, and technology to shape better leaders, build more resilient teams, and achieve lasting organizational transformation, right? So talk about selling that outcome and pinpointing the stage, right? Thinking about those specific bottlenecks of businesses at those stage. This is a really good example of that. Another thing I really love about the landing page from BetterUp is that when we think about the build, right, the features and the scope, BetterUp is really focused on those outcomes, the bottlenecks, and that hierarchy level. It's not talking about all the little features that involved. It's very much selling the outcome. And you can see that if we just come back to the landing page and scroll down, right? So growth and transformation for a thriving workplace. Helps employees build skills, mindsets, perform at their peak. We already went through this one, right? Selling the outcome. If we continue to scroll down here, again, selling the outcome. We help organizations build more productive workforces, giving individuals the tools they need to thrive in aspects of their lives. So we're not necessarily saying what those tools are. You can see a picture. Clearly there's an app here with certain features, right? But we're focusing on that outcome. So, and here too, this is sort of talking about features, personalized, data-driven experiences, but it's still really focusing mostly on that outcome. Now, if you understand which stage of that hierarchy your app should apply to and what outcomes you actually want to enable your users to achieve, and you want to keep a really tight and narrow focus on the scope to help enable those things, we have a private client program where we take entrepreneurs and we help them go from their idea stage to bringing their first pilot users on board. And we're accepting new members into that program. If you're interested in getting help with your own app, you can head to coachingnocodeapps.com/apply. This is where we work with these entrepreneurs directly as they take their app from idea to bringing those first pilot users on board. So head to coachingnocodeapps.com/apply. You can apply for a free strategy call with our team, and we'll look forward to hopefully connecting with you further soon.